Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, L1 Agent, Double ITOps Capacity Without Doubling Your Budget. My name is Nathan Ballin. I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager here at BigPanda. Before we get started, as a friendly reminder, please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions about the content we'll be presenting today. Without further ado, I'm excited to introduce Tal Kane, VP and General Manager of AI Detection and Response. Tal is the co-founder and CEO of Velocity, an AI SRE company that raised $22 million. BigPanda acquired Velocity about 6 months ago, bringing Tal's industry expertise and talents to BigPanda. We're excited to have Tal here today to share his expertise.
Hi, Nathan. Thank you so much. And hi, everyone. So today I want to share with you what we're currently doing in BigPanda around the L1 agent and how do we basically change the world of how to do L1 operations. So I want to actually start with the current state of where we are. From my experience in BigPanda, and even before that, we see that companies are basically struggling and having thousands of incidents every day. And most of the work is actually repeatable. It's structured, something that you can actually create a playbook for. And we see that a lot of our customers, a lot of our companies that we're working with are actually, outsourcing around 70% of the work of the L1 into GSIs. And we believe that this one is actually, to some extent, slowing down the processes that L1s are currently doing. We see hours of manual triage, and there is basically multiple opportunities for how to improve these processes around handling incidents in the L1 stage. Now, I want to actually start by looking at, the world, kind of like zooming out for just a bit, even outside of BigPanda. One of the, I would say, exciting things that happened in the last few months was actually GitHub had an outage, basically. And one of the reasons that they had this outage was because they had massive load of agents pushing, committing code, making changes, and basically using the platform in a way that they haven't seen before. And this is exciting because GitHub was built for scale. It built for scale of massive amount of users, massive amount of operations. Multiple companies are using GitHub as their kind of like abstractive way to develop and push code. But now their scale basically raised substantially, and now they need to handle a different level of scale. Now, I think that GitHub is kind of like the canary in the coal mine because this kind of scale and a need is going to change not just for GitHub, but every company that we're seeing at this stage. Now, I think that one of the most exciting things about LLMs and AI in general that we saw up until today was that AI can be used in two different ways. One of them is the basic way of saying, you know what, I am using Claude, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using multiple services that are actually giving me the experience of assistant. I'm asking a question, the LLM and basically the agentic workflows are doing some processing, and eventually I'm getting an answer. There is a human asking a question, AI is doing all the processing, the human get back the answer. And there is this kind of ping pong. But there is another fantastic and phenomenal experience when we're saying, you know what, instead of a human in the loop, having an assistant, an AI assistant, we can actually go into a different state where we have what we call an ambient agent. Now, the ambient agent is basically an agent running conceptually 24/7, and it does the processing, it does all the work. It can work behind the scene in the background, processing information and basically do all the work. Now, I think that this is a new way of looking at solving problems because instead of a human using AI in order to solve a problem, we have AI working continuously and solving the problem. And I think that when we are looking specifically about L1s, I think that there is a huge opportunity because if you look at the processes that L1s are currently doing, it's repeatable. there is a pattern, and basically there is a predictability on how do we route incident, how do we escalate, what do we do. Most of the companies are having either playbooks, checklists, run books, and some of them have documented knowledge-based articles on how to handle the issues. Even if they don't have that, they have tribal knowledge that can be converted into playbooks. It's just a matter of time. Now, in the case of an L1, it's basically a repeatable story. Like everything is kind of like repetitive, but the volume is massive. So most companies have to have something, some human process, someone that will do the work and manage that in scale. Well, we're hearing a lot of on so many companies that are hiring tens or hundreds of people just to be able to sustain the load coming from the systems and being able to handle this high volume. And the last thing that I will mention is the work of an L1 is measurable. We can say if an L1 jumped on the incident fast enough, escalated to the right team, resolved it correctly, maybe snoozed it, anything that is kind of like being done by an L1 can be measured. And all of that is a fantastic target, a huge opportunity to leverage AI in order to focus on the L1s. Now, the story about ambient agents are not just a productivity tool. It's not just letting L1s becoming faster or making organizations more productive. It's actually, hitting the CIO OKRs around costs and efficient organization efficiency. And we, from our calls with CIOs and from leaders around this area, we see that there is an opportunity to reduce the amount of dependency on GSIs. There is basically more complex work that needs to be done, and the cost of it is getting bigger. So if we can lower it down by the amount of people that are focused on that, it's actually massive for CIOs. We understand that we want not just to hit how L1s are operating, but actually how do we reduce the load on L2s and L3s? Because if L1s are doing a fantastic job around reducing the noise, assigning the right tickets, giving enough information, the L2s can really focus on their job instead of collecting information. And the last thing that I will mention is that we're seeing multiple organizations. They're saying, you know what? If I can automate the processes around L1s, I can literally take the existing team and let them do the L2 work. So that's also an opportunity to upscale the game with L1s. And with that, I'm actually super excited to introduce the BigPanda L1 agent. And this is it's not another small change. It's not another feature. It's a game changer, and it's a new model basically of operating. How do we operate the L1 operations? How do we operate NOC? And from our point of view, what we built in BigPanda was the idea that we're taking all these capabilities, all this knowledge that we have in BigPanda using the BigPanda platform, and we leverage that to create this purpose-built L1 that can get incident, triage them, look at them, and eventually do the work that an L1 human would do instead. Now, this is not a chatbot. This is actually an ambient agent that can run 24/7, and we can actually measure how good the agent is. Now, the exciting part from my point of view is that we are actually not just running an ambient agent. Every time that the agent is successfully assigned the ticket or routed correctly to the right team, then it learns that it did the right thing. If it actually gets a mistake from time to time, it actually learns, and that becomes part of the context for any future task. Looking at ADR, the AI detection and response of BigPanda, even before the L1 agent was created, for those who are not familiar with ADR and specifically the AI triage, is the concept of supercharging L1s. We're using the BigPanda platform, all the correlation that is being done from all the different systems, this tsunami of alerts coming into BigPanda and being correlated. And then we're supercharging the human L1s by actually giving them the capability for summarization around the incidents, being able to correlate to different incidents and just getting even less noise from the different systems. We're trying and we are correlating tickets coming from humans, from incidents coming from machines. This is a service desk observability. We're searching for similar incidents in order to allow the L1 to identify whether it's a one incident or multiples that needs to be escalated and need to be communicated with other people in the organization. We're looking at external observability, which is what happens if there is an outage outside of the customer's organization, but it actually affects the organization. And we have the look at changes, and some cases changes are the source of the issue. And of course, if the organization saw this issue before, and it's just a repeatable story from the same incident multiple times from the past of the organization, there is also an opportunity to just say to the L1s, hey, you know what? This thing happened before. We can just do the same thing that we did before. Now, ADR, as I mentioned, was supercharging humans. The L1 agent in this case, is actually leveraging all these capabilities from the BigPanda platform, all the scale that is transmitting into BigPanda. But what we're doing with this one is actually starting from saying, hey, you know what? I've identified this issue, I've triaged it and looked at the incident correlation, similar incidents, tickets that are being sent from humans, and I basically decide to escalate it and route the ticket to the right team. So if it's a storage team that needs to handle the issue, I should route it according to my knowledge and my understanding on the issue. If that's a networking issue or some other teams need to be escalated, the agent learns from all this information and decides accordingly on where it needs to be correlated and basically escalated. Now, the second thing that the L1 agent is doing is also what we call the runbook automation. If you have the playbooks, if you have the runbooks for being able to execute certain steps, the agent is executing these steps, understand the context from these runbooks, and escalate it accordingly. And we have multiple other capabilities that are coming in the near future, such as automatic prioritization, escalation logic, suppression and noise reduction, and even to some extent, auto-resolution. And these two products together are giving you the opportunity to both supercharge your existing humans and also replace some of the processes and automating that as much as possible. Now, the concept of routing specifically is exactly the use case that, from my point of view, is the phase one for what we can do with ambient agents. We in BigPanda can basically look at all your alerts, your correlated incidents, your ITSM tickets, your historical information, and even the team structures and escalation paths. And we can give the agent all this context in order to say, hey, dear agent, given all this context from this incident and from past this information, who needs to be escalated? And basically, this is how the agent is reacting to that. This can be, instead of minutes or hours, the agent can decide where this thing needs to be escalated in minutes. Now, without naming the specific customer, we have a customer that installed the L1 agent on top of the existing BigPanda platform, and they saw around 80% reduction in MTTR because the agent was able to assign it correctly in the organization. And they saw 95 to 96% of reduction in mean time to assignment, which, as you can imagine, is actually coming from the agent being able to analyze all this information correctly and just push it to the right team as expected. Now, the autonomy, the ambient agent, and the whole process of autonomy for how to leverage AI, it's a journey. It's not just, one day you're using AI to chat with it, and one day you're completely remove your hands from the wheel. We see this as a transition that organizations can decide where they want to be in this journey. One step is saying, you know what? I will use AI, let's say in the AI triage case, saying, I want the human to look at the information that the AI processed and the human to make a decision. This is phase one, because we're saying, you know what? The AI can supercharge me and reduce the amount of triage that I need to do, but I still need to make the further investigation and make a decision. Now, the second phase, which the L1 agent is exceeding, is basically saying, you know what, let's let the agent do all the investigation and bring the human for approval, which means that at this stage, we're saying that the agent is triaging, looking at all the information, doing the processing for everything that is basically coming from the platform itself. And the human is getting recommendation. Hey, you need to escalate it to this team. You need to share it into ServiceNow or to any other ITSM ticketing system. And the human can look at the recommendation, look at the reasoning, and decide to apply it or not to apply it. And the last phase, which is the kind of like dialing in and dialing it to full agent autonomy, saying, you know what, the agent is both doing the investigation, but also approve it after doing the analysis on its own data. And every organization can decide where do you want to be in this journey. You don't have to start on phase three. You can start from supercharging, maybe to move to the agent doing the processing and then the human to do the verification. And eventually, once you trust the AI enough, you can transition yourself into the full agent autonomy. So to make it more tangible, so what does it mean to what the agent do? Like, how do we build this thing? So from our point of view, we have four main pillars for the L1 agents. The first thing is, how do we learn? So the agent is looking at all the information coming from incidents, alerts, ITSM tickets, runbooks, knowledge base articles, and basically it ingest all this information and make decisions on top of it. Now, the type of decisions that the agent can do is basically the first thing is assignment. Hey, I got this incident. I understood from all the information, what do I need to do with this incident? And then I push it to the right team. But in the very short future, we also can allow the agent to say, you know what? This thing seems like a flapping alert. I can just suppress it for the next 5 minutes, or reprioritize it from P1 to P2 or from P3 to P1 according to the information that I have. Now, the agent have to have the legs and arms to be able to touch the systems and read information from them. So at this stage, we have the BigPanda platform, we have ServiceNow, we have Jira, we have multiple ITSM systems. But going forward, we have Grafana and other network tools for automation, CMDB, and as many integrations as possible for the agent to have the right context. And the actions that the agent can take is actually based on the runbook investigation and automation that we're implementing and executing at this stage, is by collecting information from the runbook execution and get more context in order for the decisions to be as accurate as possible. Going forward, we also have the ability to say the agent can also do the escalation and also the resolution going forward and the full remediation. Now, how do we build trust? We spoke about, transitioning from AI supercharging into full autonomy. Now, from our point of view, in order to get to this point, we have to show that the agent is learning, improving, and we know how to evaluate that the agent is giving the right answer. Now, the way that we approach it is by first letting the agent review historical information and without actually taking any actions. That's just kind of like the agent running behind the scene. Then the agent is giving a recommendation. We can actually look at real tickets and ask the agent, hey, given your analysis and giving all the information that you have, what is going to be your recommendation without actually doing anything. Now, at this stage, once the agent was able to once the agent was able to recommend something, we can compare, okay, let's basically do a check. What the agent recommended to do, what the humans actually did in real flow. And once we see that we get to high accuracy, we can actually say, you know what, the agent passed the test. We're getting 95, 96, 99% of accuracy. Now it's time to activate the agent and allow it to actually leverage everything that it learned in order to get the automation level that we are searching for. Now, the exciting thing from my point of view on agents in general and what basically LLMs brought us is the least common denominator for communication. And from my point of view, if we allow agents to not just having a new interface, but actually using the existing systems that people are using, and it acts like another human being is joining the team and changing something in the ecosystem that other humans are using, then it's easier to consume agents. And the best example that I can give to that is the L1 agent, instead of giving you another interface, it's actually going to existing incidents, existing ServiceNow tickets, existing items in BigPanda. It's assigned it to itself, and then it basically makes the changes. It can assign the tickets, it can close the ticket, it can do all the actions that the human will do in a way that if you're looking from the other side without knowing that this is an agent, you won't be able to differentiate between whether an agent was working on the ticket or a human was working on the ticket. This is basically allow us to integrate BigPanda into existing systems without having to educate and onboard other people in order to leverage all these capabilities. So the integration and implementation can be just plugging in BigPanda and the L1 agent and allow it to start consuming the data. Now, this is the exciting part because it's not just a concept, it's actually running in production. So what I will do next, I will actually share my screen on a demo environment. And in this demo, I will actually show how incidents are coming in. And with these incidents, instead of me starting to investigate them and jumping into the information in order to understand what are the alerts, what are the different incidents, how do I solve the incidents, I'm actually going to do a no hands show where I'm going to show you that the BigPanda agent, the L1 agent, is going to assign itself all the incidents. It's going to do the triaging. And at the end of it, I'm going to get both the recommendation, but I'm also going to get the runbook execution on top of these incidents. So let me share my screen on the BigPanda console. Let's see that we are seeing the right screen. Fantastic. So this is the BigPanda console. You can see here, just like an email inbox, multiple incidents coming in. Some of them are already resolved or handled. And here in this list, we can actually see that there is an assignment for the BigPanda agent. It just assigned it to itself. And for every incident, I ask the agent to basically tell us who do we need to escalate the incident for. So let's give it 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and we can start seeing that the agent is starting to give recommendations for who needs to be escalated for this incident. So for the sake of our discussion, let's take this one. I want to show an incident with the runbook execution. So let's give it 10 more seconds for this. Wonderful. Let's look at this one. Okay, great. So in this one, this is the general AI triage. This is us supercharging L1s. And I want to focus specifically on the AI overview. So instead of me jumping to all the information in, I can just look at that one and see, okay, so the agent ran on all the information and it decided that the right thing to do is assign it to the EHR team. And it says connectivity check confirmed that EHR DB Mongo is unreachable with payload tags and highly similar historical incident corroborating this routing. Fantastic. So it ran the runbook, it looked at the information, and it used historical information in order to say, you know what? The only thing that you need to do is assign it and escalate it to the EHR team. Now, if I want to see more information, I can just click here, show more, and we can see that there was a connectivity issue. The runbook routed this to the EHR team according to the payload. We're seeing that some of it is actually coming from a pre-tag information. We're seeing some similar historical incidents that are talking about this kind of issue. And it seems like there are some confusion, or not confusion, but multiple options for, is it going to be the EHR team or the database team? But eventually decided to escalate it to the EHR team. Now I can also scroll down here and basically see the runbook execution. So we executed the runbooks given from the knowledge base article of the customer. And we can see here that the runbook was first running a predefined step to see if we can hit the status.bigpanda.io stage. And then the agent decided to actually go ahead, look at the host, and ping it in order to see if it's actually available or not. In this case, there was a failure for pinging this one, which means that the host was unreachable. And the agent decided, you know what, I need to escalate it. Now, this is great, and that was fairly fast. But some of our customers are actually saying, you know what, I'm not living in the BigPanda console. Some of my team is living in BigPanda console. Some of them are actually living in the ITSM system. So BigPanda also implemented the concept of integration into your ITSM system. In this case, it's ServiceNow. So what you can see here that we actually allow the agent to assign the issue here to the EHR team. That was done automatically. And inside the BigPanda view, you can see here the kind of like the AI analysis. And you can see all the information that I just showed you, but inside ServiceNow. So we can see here the triaging part. We can see here all the steps that we took. Everything is both visible in the BigPanda console and in ServiceNow as part of the incident itself. Great. So just to summarize it, basically what we saw is multiple incidents coming in. I didn't have to do anything other than looking at the information that the agent made in this part. In this case, we dial it to full automation. If I wanted the agent to give me the recommendation, I will have to click apply here as part of the process. But in our case, we told the agent just go give the recommendation and also apply all the actions needed in order to resolve the issue, or at least route it to the right team. Perfect. Going back to the slides. Let's do this. Perfect. So the only thing that I will mention here is the case of Gamma. We're working with Gamma from day one on the L1 agent, and they are basically one of the customers, one of the design partners that we work along the way, and that basically allow them to fast track the way that how they do their L1 operations. And it's both allowing them to reduce the MTTR, but also supercharge and basically do a better way for leveraging the L1s. They can take the L1s and basically make them L2s, and they allow the L2s to be more efficient as part of this process, which is, from my point of view, it's amazing. The world is changing, and it's exciting to be a builder in this world. I think that the way that the problem around L1 automation is kind of like just the start of what we're seeing with what can be done with AI. And I think that's when you think about your operations, when you think about how do you handle the new load that is coming that is coming from everything that is happening in our lives right now, you need to think of how you change basically how you change the game, how you handle operations, and how do you automate yourself or automate the processes as much as possible. Now, I kind of like mentioned the story of GitHub, and I think that this is going to happen to all of us, even Big Panda. So we have to prepare ourselves for a new way of working. Then the thing that you need to ask yourself is, are you ready? And what are the steps that you're taking towards the changes and we all gonna get in the near future? Um, yeah, Nathan?
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for sharing your vision for the future of L1 operations and actually showing BigPanda L1 Agent in action. This is very exciting technology and something that you can try out today. You can click on this QR code to get more information about the L1 Agent. And if you want to hear more from Tal in the near future, you can register for his next webinar coming up on July 14th. Thank you again, Tal, for your time, and thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.